All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. It's a big day. It's actually nighttime. I'm gonna get my heads put on this engine. So what I got here is just it's actually an old dress, not mine. It's an old dress, very fine fiber, and some lacquer thinner in my cup. So I'm gonna go by and wipe all the oily residue off the top of this block. Most of it is WD-40, and it might not hurt anything, but we'll go through and give it a couple wipes. You can see there's just a little bit of funk, not bad. And then I will take a dry side and wipe that off, just to be sure there's no moisture or anything like that. We're putting heads on today, so that's exciting. My plan was for this video, heads, cut my push rods, set up my valve train. So I should be able to squeeze all that in. Hopefully you saw the other video where I checked the quench and the piston. I checked the valve to piston clearance. So there's that. This side is basically ready. Give it another quick wipe. I mean, I always wipe until there's nothing else coming off on the rag, just like if I was painting a car or something. Go through here. I've cycled the engine up and spun it over 3 or 4 times, and I still got just a little bit of, I wouldn't call it trash, maybe it's just a little dirt or something that got in there. Real fine particles of stuff. And you can see it where the rings that drag that oil up and down. But yeah, clean, clean, clean. This is what an MLS gasket is, what it looks like. That means multi-layer steel. It's got 2 coated outer sections, and then the center is uncoated and basically flat as far as I can tell. It's got a little bit of ring on the inside of that ridge right there. Hopefully you can see that. So examining these, they have the rivets 1, 2, 3 that just hold all the layers together. And if I lay it on the block, see, like if I look, this side is raised, that side is raised, so it doesn't matter which way it goes. And if you flip it over, all the holes are identical. So flip it this way, it's the exact same. I had a guy ask me about these small slits here in this gasket, because if you look at the passage in the block, it's that big 8 shape. And what this is going to do is greatly reduce that. So from my reading and understanding, that's imperative that it does that to kind of slow the flow down, because I know it sounds weird, but if it's flowing too much and too fast, too quickly, then it will actually overheat. I know it sounds strange, doesn't it? But it's the same principle with a thermostat. If you have a thermostat, if you pull your thermostat out and run, sometimes I've seen cars overheat before. So like on our race cars, we just take a thermostat and cut out the inside, but leave the outer layer. So basically it still has a restriction. So these are restrictions made into this head gasket. I can show you. There's the old Fel-Pro from the kit, exact same thing. But the reason I chose this larger gasket, if I can get it to pop on down on there, I might have to mess with that a little bit. It clears my chamfer by a mile. So that scares a lot of people. Oh no, it's gonna, I don't know what the excuse is. It's gonna detonate, it's gonna do whatever, but if that hangs in just a little bit, it will leak. I did a video on that. So this is a 4.500 bore gasket. So whenever it is compressed, that's gonna actually squeeze in just a little bit. It'll be fine. So that's if I'm using that gasket. Wanted to show it to you. So also I need to get my heads out. I've got them just covered up here. I'm gonna blow out all my coolant passages in here, be sure there's no extra metal flakes or anything from when Ed at Ed's machine had decked them. And yeah, we'll be ready to bolt on. All right. I did drop my head on and test fit it. You saw that last time to be sure the dowels were clear and all that. Nice flat as it goes down. 17 bolts. Let me gather them. Get my ARP lube on. See, my fingers are dirty already. Getting my threads. Already got under the heads. Just a little bit, not a lot. Most of y'all already know I'm a little old school, that I like my speed wrench for some stuff. I know it's not the fastest, but I can feel how everything's tightening. If there's any kind of burr or any kind of drag, I can feel it versus using a electric wrench or ratchet or whatever you'd like to call this one. Uh-oh. She's ruined. She's gonna lock up. There we go. There. And I'll get out Drew's good torque wrench, the snap on, and start tightening bolts up for real. Probably do it in 3 steps. Start with 50, or start with 30 even, just something to evenly work its way up. See, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this one down and get it started good. Got that. Got that. And we'll finish there on the corner. Okay, torque wrench time. I'll go 3 steps. 40 is fine. All right, back on our engine here. I went ahead and set this head on, got it all the way down flush. I was checking some stuff on it the other night, and Ruben at Muscle City Madness had called and asked me about my 400 build, and he said, "Man, your distributor fit?" And I was a little bit puzzled. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, his buddy had used some edelbrock. I don't know if they're Performer or what they were, but the edelbrock aluminum heads, and the distributor actually contacted the head itself." And you can see mine's doing that. I've got the correct gear in, the one I'm using with the build, and my head is contacting that distributor. So before I bolt his head down, if I need to do any clearancing on the outside of the head, which a lot of people would maybe just grind that distributor if you wanted to, but it was a brand new distributor. This is a fast that I got with an injection kit, but I think it's an easy run deal, so I may try it first. If not, I've got this giant abomination of a distributor. Looks like Thor's hammer from DUI. And I used that in a video before of starting an engine in the floor. It literally takes one hot wire and it's battery intact. You're good to go. Everything's right there in that cap. And it is ugly, man. And it sticks up way out. I'm not even sure if my hood would close in this car with that distributor in, but I might start it the first time on my run stand with it. I know it's ugly, but I've heard really good things about this company. So if you have, let me know in the comments. But basically what I'm doing here, this is the plan distributor that I'm using. I just went ahead and stuck it in and rotated it back and forth, so it'll give me a little mark. I can pop my head off. I'll probably end up wrapping most of it in a black trash bag to where I can, you know, I don't want any metal shavings at all anywhere around the engine or this head. I can step outside, raise my garage door, and grind that little space off. It'll be good to go. So just wanted to show you that. And of course, I'll grind a little bit below it as well because my gasket will space the head up some. So even if the head was spaced up, it might clear, but I don't want to take the chance. It is time to set up my valve train. I'm going to recheck my push rod length. And I got a proper push rod checker from Drew. This is a Comp 7719-1. However, it is too long, even in its most compressed state. You see here it unscrews like that and screws way on out, but it's too long and there's not a piece or anything that you can take out of it. It is 8.8 to 9.8, and I can't remember on the low deck push rod number. I have a digital caliper. I'm going to measure that in a minute, but until then, I'm going to reuse the one that I made, put my new 1.6 rockers on, and I wanted to show you. So this is the 440 Source rocker that I just did a video on some of their stuff. I'm going to leave one thread hanging out the bottom. If I leave one thread hanging out the bottom, that puts my lock nut exactly in line. If I use just this Allen wrench, Allen key, you can kind of tell. It puts that almost exactly in line with the top of the adjuster. So I've heard people say 1 to 3 threads. I think Ed mentions 1 to 3 threads. So I'm going to go with 1. I'll start there. And if I need to go up or down from there, I can. I just think that's a really good starting point. Shouldn't have any issue. I'm going to get my shaft set up with just 2 of those. I've got an extra shim pack. I've got their spacers. I've got from that came with the edelbrock heads, this random pack, and it looks like it has some studs to help hold the rocker shafts down. I don't know why they only send you 4, I believe. So I'll just stagger them, I guess. I got the bolts to go with the 440 Source kit, aluminum rocker HD set. So the bolts that hold those down, all that stuff will be good to go. Let me get it out and I'll get it test fit up here for you. I'm back at the old shop and I've got some push rods. And y'all can think any way you want to about me. That's okay. I'm gonna finish here with a good product. Let me show you what I got to start with. These are thick wall push rods for a RB block. So they are actually in a stroker that was in a mega block. These are an extra set that we had pulled out, and I'm going to cut them down and make them work for my 400. So you say, well, how do you do that? Step 1, I've cleaned all the oil, any oily film off of them with lacquer thinner. Step 2, to machine surface like my vise top. I'll get you set up here. I have my push rod checker that I've got my measurement off of. This one is my master. I put an M on it. I'm going to set them just like that on that machine surface, and I'm going to take my black magic marker and I'm going to mark right there. See if she'll show up. And I see that I need to make a cut right towards the bottom of that mark. I do every one of these individually. So I'm going to take this, and I'll take you. Okay. So now, I take my push rod and I chuck it up in my drill press. Just like that. Doesn't have to be super tight. Like my pipe cutter. And you can have these cut at a machine shop if you'd like. Totally up to you. I remember where I need it on my black mark, as I do each one of these individually. Tighten it just a little bit. I can spin my press. And look at my score line. Be sure it's right on my mark. Now you can see it all. It's nice and tight on the push rod. Turn it up. Slowly tighten. The oil mine. There we go. My cutter's spinning again. And that's it. So I'm going to leave this in here. I want to show you. It puts a little bit of crown on the end of this. So I don't need that crown. I'm not actually using this end. I'm just showing you. I need to take that crown off this side. So I have here a nice file. Turn back on my drill press. I'm going to hold the file. Run it over. I can even sturdy my hand up against the push rod if I'd like. Nice and flat. Looks like that. So what am I going to do with this end? Because it actually needs a little bit of bevel to put the new end, the new cup into it. I have this little jewel right here. I will fix it into my press, just like that. Tighten her up. Which I'm doing these in stages. I'm doing this one for demonstration right now with you all. But I'll cut it on. Spin, holding it straight as I can. Examine. Give me a little chamfer right there. And a little bit more. Stop right there. I'll grab my new end. Chamfer. Here's what a factory chamfer looks like if you'd like to know. Do you want to compare them? Anyway, there's my end, cup end. I'm gonna put a little red Loctite on that dude. And some may say that's overkill, whatever, I don't know. Some may be skeptical at my entire process. I will get her started in. There we go. Just give it a little tap. Get it started nicely. Some of y'all will recognize the good old brass hammer. Start her in. Now started in, I can go outside of my cold press and press it together. Finished product, you can see what we started with and what we finished with. So they're about that much shorter. All right, back at the shop. Got all my push rods done. They are pretty nice, I think. They look like something you'd buy at the store. These rocker arms. I'm going to get my roller tip side to side centered with my spacers. But I also, you see I have a marker here, and I want to check my sweep pattern. And we'll see where it falls. I'm not running lash caps on this one. You can, totally up to you. It'll change your geometry a little bit, and we can talk about the roller pattern in just a second. I'm going to stick my shaft back on. Doing one at a time here. I guess I can do both. Why not? In a Mopar, it's less critical. Not that I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying it's less important on the push rod length because the adjuster itself actually takes up that slack on the backside. So I know on the Chevrolet, if it's mounted, you run a longer push rod and it's mounted on a stud, it can move your roller in or out, all that. We don't have that issue because the adjuster is the equivalent of making it a slightly longer or shorter push rod whenever you tighten it. Okay, so per the website instructions, the end play on these should have 15 to 30 thousandths. Currently I'm at probably, see that little tiny bit right there? It's just barely moving. I would guess I'm less than 5 thousandths. So I may need to pop a shim out. But before I do that, I'm looking at my rollers here, and it looks like my push rod on the inside of here is almost touching that wall. So it's not, I can spin it. It's very close. So what I need to do is move a shim. I actually have one shim here, their big spacer, one shim there. Move one of those shims to this side and bring that rocker arm over a little bit. Give me a little more clearance there, because this side, I don't know if you can see it, there it is, has a mile of clearance. So getting my push rods off the wall is important. I don't want those rubbing. Also, centering my roller side to side on the tip. If I just draw you a line so you can kind of see right now, there's the center of that, and my roller is to that side some. So when I pull it over to center it here, it'll move my push rod over. This one looks pretty good, actually. And I just kind of counted my number of shims. It's kind of hard to say I'm going to use 4 on this side and 1 on this side and 2 on this side every time, just because of manufacturing tolerances. And if I loosen this shaft up, you can see that it'll have a little bit of play there. Hopefully you can see that moving. And there's holes in this shaft. I want y'all to be aware of that. This shaft from 440 Source has holes on the top and the bottom side, and they are centered with these other holes. They're not off like a normal Mopar. So I just wanted to be sure and head off any comments that I had the shaft upside down. I realize that the holes typically go down in a Mopar. So they just doubled up on us here. I'm gonna get this one pulled off and moved over, and then we're gonna check our sweep. And I moved 2 shims from the center to this side. So now I have some side to side play, and I'm gonna measure that with a feeler gauge. There's one to start. I definitely wouldn't, I would stay on the tighter side if it was me. That's how I run my race car. There we go. Because these bearings have the little rollers in them, I was told that they lose a little more oil than the other style. So that is 16 thousandths, and it is a tight drag through there. So that's good. That's within spec. That's on the tight end. The push rod is now a mile away from that wall of the chamber. I'm on the back side of this exhaust lobe. I can see it through there. So I'm just going to tighten it to 0 lash. And I'll put that one down. Looks like my intake I need to move around a little bit, so I'm going to leave it loose. Low is up currently. And I'm just watching it to be right there. Yep. So for what we're doing, it is 90 degrees. I'm sorry, it's 180 degrees away from the valve. Push rod's nice and centered in the lifter. I can spin it, but there's zero slack right there. So this is for testing only. I realize the engine won't run with zero lash after it heats up, because it would just open the valves. I don't even have to tighten those. Finger tight's fine. Let it cycle a couple times on the tips of our valves, the valve stems, I guess you would call them. One more time. Up and okay. I'm on the back side of that cam lobe. See, I got a little bit of slack there. Y'all get to see it before I do. Right there's the outer edge. Right there's the inner edge. Same thing here. Our line and our line. If I had to draw it, I don't know if I can or not. It would be about right there. There to there. I'm going to call that good. It's in the center 2/3 of this. One thing you can do on a Mopar especially, or shaft mount system, is to add shims. But when you add shims, and I'm going to stick this level on here to show you. This level, well, how about an angle finder? The angle of this valve tip in comparison to that bolt or this pedestal are different. The pedestals are actually leaning in towards the valve more than the valve is towards that, if that makes sense. So if we just took a measurement, I think this was about 28 degrees here. And if I stick that on the head of that stud, you'll see that goes up to like 44. So what that means, if this was also 28, let me lean it till you get there. See the difference right there? So I'm having to lean this up where that angle is right there to match this angle. So what that means is when you put shims here, you're going to bring the rollers further out on the tip, on the stem. So if you had, like on my purple car, it has the rollers coming further off the end of the stem, or yeah, the valve stem. If you add a lash cap, that will give you a taller stem, and that would bring your roller back towards the inside. So hopefully that makes sense. We're gonna keep pushing forward here. Now it's lifter time. These are the lifters I'm using. They are Johnson from Romulus, Michigan. I just wiped them up. They are solid rollers. I wiped them off really well, cleaned them out and blew them out. I don't take mine apart. Some people do that. It is what it is. step one, I've got myself a little bit of, this is high mileage oil stabilizer. I just used probably a third of this, not even a third, with some engine oil, mixed it up really well. And I'm gonna go through and just pour down the top of those. Be sure all my bores are nice and lubed. Uh-oh. See, she's not. A little thicker than normal oil, but not super thick. There we go. And take a gloved finger and smear it around. See, it's got a little bit of stringiness. You can't, not as much as normal regular Lucas, but I'm gonna prime this engine anyway before I start it. But having it all lubed up's nice. Run a little into there, roundy round. Okay, we'll save that in just a second. I have here just a cup of engine oil. I'm gonna dip my lifters, be sure my rollers are nice and wet, and then I'll drop them down. The crossbar goes to the top in this situation. I'm gonna come back by and lube those in just a minute, but just get a feel for it in the bore. Nice and lubed. There is just a little bit of Lucas in this cup also. Help the oil stay where I want it to stay. No tight spots. Nice up and down. Nice up and down. There are 8 pair of these. And a partridge and a pear tree. 8. But I wanted to get them all put in correctly and permanently before I went ahead and stuck my push rods on them. There we go. Feels nice. Feels nice. And there we are. They're all in their places. I also thought it was important to mention, I got a little Isky Rev Lube here with Moly sulfide. I'll either use that, or I have some driven assembly grease, and I'm going to put a little bit of dab inside of every push rod cup, just a little bit, so that I know whenever this engine starts up, these probably won't spin because the lifters are coming up and down, but whenever the ball of the adjuster goes in there, it'll have a nice lubrication instead of just being bone dry. And I could pour oil in and probably be fine, but I think a little bit of extra here, this stuff will stay there. If this engine gets started in 2 weeks, this will still be there. So just wanted to share that with you. Put my new glove on so I can run by and do that. So I was all excited. I got this side bolted down, torqued down, 30 foot-pounds, rolled the engine over just lightly, and I was actually started on this other side, and from this side I looked over and I thought, I looked through, that's a pretty tight clearance between that rocker and that pedestal, but it's got it, it's okay. Lots of room there, lots of room here, gobs of room there, and right there, that dude is a sheet of paper maybe from touching. So that's no good. And if I look around, my roller is already inset some. So if I continue spacing that, it's going to pull the roller even further off the center of that. I think my best bet will be to clearance that pedestal just a little bit on the inside. That would be, I think, best for everyone. And I can do it with a file and tape everything off. Be real careful, but that's why we check. It would self-clearance, that's for sure. But I hate to keep shimming here, and it pulls my roller way, way, way inside. That's no good. That one looks pretty nice. That one looks pretty nice. That one looks pretty nice. All the way down the line, I just go by and check. This one looks like it could move to the left just, I'm sorry, to the right just a little bit. And that one looks pretty good. So moving that one, switch of shims, double check my push rod clearance on the wall inside. It looks good. Minor adjustments, but if you don't check it and you throw it together, you'll have issues. I got her clearanced over here. I know it doesn't look like much. I'm gonna guess that's 25 thousandths. I can throw a feeler gauge on it, but there's definitely a nice little air gap now. But to mirror that, this one, she needs clearanced, just like the other side. I'm glad I'm finding it now. But get the rest of these set up and knock it out. All right, hopefully y'all hung around this long. I got my passenger side finished, and I went ahead and lashed this valve at 6 thousandths cold, and I may end up changing that. I just wanted to see what my threads would look like. So on top of the valve, or on top of the adjuster, my nut is almost perfectly in line. And under, let me get my flashlight. Flashlights are important. Can you see one thread? Can you see that oiling hole? So that oiler will shoot and fill that cup up so nicely. That dude is good to go. That's almost exactly what I wanted. So, barely got a thread showing. Everything's beautiful. Just a little bit of man, 4,000 isn't very much. My roller rolls. Anyway, we're going to quit right there for the day. I appreciate y'all watching and following along with this little build. Low buck, low budget. 400. I'm trying to make 500 horsepower with it. And I'll catch you next time.